I remember the exact moment the nightmare began. It was a breezy Saturday morning, birds chirping, coffee in hand, standing barefoot in the doorway of my first real home, the one I'd scraped and bled to get. And then I saw them, my family, smiling, uninvited, already halfway up the driveway with wide eyes and sticky fingers. And that was the beginning of the end. It should have been a peaceful chapter of my life. My name is Aaron. I'm 34, single, no kids, no drama, at least, I thought. After 2 years of living in a makeshift camper attached to my old pickup truck, I'd finally clawed my way back into something stable. A real job, a clean mortgage, a modest 3-bedroom home in a quiet suburb of Bridgeview, Oregon. But nothing could have prepared me for the audacity of my family. Let me back up. Growing up, I always knew my brother, Kyle, was the favorite. He was 3 years younger, but somehow always got the lion's share of attention, gifts, praise, you name it. While I was getting grounded for talking back, Kyle was lighting fireworks in the kitchen and getting away with a slap on the wrist. By the time I was in high school, our parents had all but stopped pretending. They'd moved us 200 miles away from extended family after too many outsiders started noticing the blatant favoritism. When Kyle got a girl pregnant at 22, Mom and Dad rushed to turn their house into a daycare center. When I got laid off from my job at 28, radio silence. Their house, a creaky, overstuffed 3-bedroom from the 60s, was barely enough for the 6 of them, Kyle, his wife Mandy, and their 4 kids under the age of 10. Yet, somehow, there was always room for them, but never for me. When I hit rock bottom in 2020 during the pandemic, I asked to park my camper in their driveway for a few months while I looked for work. I wasn't asking for a bed, just space and an outlet. My mom wrinkled her nose like she'd smelled something foul and said, "This isn't a trailer park, Aaron." They wanted to charge me the equivalent of rent at a studio apartment just to park in the driveway. I was unemployed, broke, and desperate. They laughed when I parked outside a Walmart for the night. Literally laughed. Kyle pointed at my camper and called me Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation. Mandy giggled like she was in on the best inside joke of the century. They thought I'd break. But I didn't. I survived out of that camper for over a year. Ducked HOA Karens, dodged druggies in sketchy parking lots, snuck electricity from auto body shops and laundromats. I showered at a gym, ate tuna from a can, and somehow, I landed a job at a logistics company 2 towns over. My boss saw how hungry I was, literally and figuratively, and let me park behind the warehouse. I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Eventually, I was promoted to shift lead. 6 months after that, I became a logistics coordinator and got a raise big enough to think about stability again. That's when I found it. A little manufactured home tucked away just a few miles from work. 3 bedrooms, small yard, good bones. It was $10,000 under market because the owners were in a rush. I drained every cent of my savings and barely scraped the down payment. But it was mine. All mine. The first night in that house, I slept on the floor with nothing but a rolled-up hoodie as a pillow and the biggest smile plastered across my face. I'd made it. I didn't need them. Not anymore. I should have kept it quiet. But like an idiot, I posted a celebratory pic on social media, me holding up my new house key in front of the sold sign, grinning like a fool. Big mistake. A week later, they showed up. Kyle, Mandy, the 4 kids, my mom, and my dad, uninvited, unannounced, and somehow knowing my address even though I never gave it to anyone. "Whoa," Kyle said, stepping past me like it was his open house. "This is way nicer than our place." Mandy followed with her trademark smirk. A lot of space for someone who doesn't even have a girlfriend. My dad chuckled. My mom wrinkled her nose, this time not at my camper, but at my choice of drapes. "You know," she said casually, "this place could really be put to better use." Something in my gut twisted. The kids raced through the halls, screaming, already fighting over which room would be theirs. I stood frozen in my own foyer, suddenly a guest in my own life. Then Kyle asked to talk man to man. That was when I knew I was about to be stabbed with a butter knife, blunt, messy, and way too familiar. He pulled me aside, all somber-like, and laid it out. "Look, man. Mandy's pregnant again, and we're totally out of room. You've got this whole place, and you're not even using half of it." He smiled, like he was doing me a favor. "You've still got that camper, right? Just for a while, until we get on our feet." "Get on your feet?" I laughed, trying not to combust. "You've got 4 kids already, Kyle. When was the plan ever to get on your feet?" He didn't flinch. "You don't understand. Mom and Dad already said you'd help us out. They said you'd be reasonable. I looked around at the chaos, Mandy laying on my couch with her shoes on, kids pulling open drawers in my kitchen like it was a scavenger hunt. My mom nodding at me from the corner like this was all predetermined. My vision blurred at the edges. My fists clenched so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. No, I said, voice trembling. Absolutely not. And then Kyle looked me dead in the eye and said the words that still echo in my skull. You don't need this house. We do. Just do this for family. There's a feeling you get when you realize your family doesn't just misunderstand you, they don't see you at all. Not as a person, not as an adult. Just a placeholder for their own entitlement. That's how I felt, standing there in my own living room, listening to my younger brother tell me that I didn't deserve the house I bought with my own blood, sweat, and literal sleepless nights. They had it all figured out. Kyle would move in. Mandy would manage the house. I could live in the camper in the backyard like some glorified pet. And I wasn't even invited to this arrangement, I was just expected to obey. I've got the kids, Kyle said, arms wide like he was Jesus in a soap commercial. You've got space. You've got no one. What's the issue here? He even tried to shake my hand like we'd reached a business deal. That was the moment the rage kicked in. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit the record button, and just stared at him. Let the camera soak it all in, his smug tone, Mandy's possessive smirk, my parents lingering like referees waiting to declare him the winner. I'm not asking, Kyle said. This is happening. You'll get used to it. That's when I let loose. No, I barked, loud enough that Mandy flinched. This isn't your house. You don't live here. And you sure as hell aren't moving in. I don't care if you've got 4 kids, a dozen kids, or you're building your own football team. This isn't happening. I could feel my pulse thumping in my neck, my face hot with years of swallowed frustration. Mandy's mouth twisted like a horror movie villain. You're seriously doing this to a pregnant woman? Well, classy. You did this to yourself? I snapped. You walked into a home that isn't yours and tried to steal it with a baby as your battering ram. My parents rushed in like they were waiting on their cue. Just do it for Kyle, my mom said, her voice syrupy sweet and fake as hell. It's one house. You can live in the camper. You always liked camping, didn't you? You kicked me out last time I asked to park that camper in your driveway, I growled. Said I was an eyesore. And now you want me to live in it like a guard dog while Kyle plays king of my living room. That's when Mandy snapped. She lunged. She actually lunged at me like she was auditioning for a spot in the WWE. Slapped me hard across the face and raised her nails for another swing. Kyle had to hold her back while she screeched like a banshee. I'm gonna scratch your damn eyes out, you selfish piece of... I calmly lifted my phone. It's all on video. You just assaulted me. One more step, and I'm calling the cops. The entire room fell quiet except for the hyperventilating chaos monster that was Mandy. She burst into tears immediately, curled into Kyle's chest, and wailed like I'd just murdered her self-esteem. My dad stepped forward, red-faced and furious. You're tearing this family apart over a damn house, Aaron. I stared him down. No, you tore this family apart a long time ago. This is me finally building something for myself. They left after that, my mom sniffling and muttering that I'd regret it. Kyle glared at me like I'd betrayed some blood pact, and Mandy, well, she dragged herself out like a martyr marching into exile. I thought it was over. It wasn't. 5 days later, I pulled into my driveway after a 12-hour shift to find something that made my stomach drop straight through the floor. A moving truck, parked in my driveway, and Kyle's minivan right next to it. I froze. There were boxes on the lawn, toys, furniture, bags, and Mandy, standing smug on my front porch with a box of throw pillows in her arms like she was queen of the cul-de-sac. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. Kyle stepped out from the house with a roll of paper towels and a drill in hand. You didn't come to your senses, so we came for you. I didn't even make it to the steps before Mandy's voice cut across the yard, fake sweet again. It's okay, Aaron. Mommy said we could stay. Mommy, she said, like we were 6 years old and my mother's word was law. I backed up, locked myself in my truck, and called the police on speaker with the windows cracked, just enough for them to hear Mandy yelling at me to stop. If you call the cops, I'll scratch up your truck so bad, you'll think it was mauled by a bear, she screamed. The 911 operator heard every word. I gave them the address. Told them everything: unauthorized entry, attempted squat, threats of vandalism. 10 minutes later, the cops arrived. Kyle and Mandy locked themselves in my house. I showed the cops my ID, my house deed, even my Facebook post where I stupidly celebrated my purchase. I pointed at the front door, now with a new lock. The old one left busted and tossed on the porch, alongside a drill and bit set they were too dumb to hide. That's when Kyle reappeared, holding a piece of paper like he'd just won a court case. "It's a rental agreement," he declared. "Aaron signed it. We have a right to be here." I took one look at it and nearly laughed. The signature was a forged mess. It looked like a toddler's attempt at cursive. "Seriously?" I asked. "You think this is going to hold up? That's not even close to my handwriting. I have video of everything. Do you really want to go to jail for fraud?" Kyle's face paled. Mandy clutched her stomach and started sobbing again, yelling something about how I was going to ruin her unborn child's life. My parents showed up halfway through the confrontation, probably summoned to witness my humiliation, and tried to pull the same tired speech. "Just do it for Kyle," my mom pleaded again. "Just 1 year. You're being selfish." I turned to the police. "I want them all out. They drilled out my lock. They broke in. They forged a lease. And I have video of her attacking me last week." The cops didn't hesitate after that. They ordered Kyle and Mandy to start packing up immediately. One of the officers even warned Mandy that if she didn't stop crying long enough to comply, they'd cuff her for obstruction. I could see the fury burning under her forced fragility as she picked up a diaper bag and sulked toward the minivan. But the best part? Before Kyle could leave, I demanded he hand over the new key. He sneered, took it off his ring, and chucked it into a storm drain. One of the officers stared him down, deadpan. "Go get it." So Kyle spent 10 minutes on his knees, prying open a filthy grate while neighbors walked their dogs and watched the scene unfold like it was free reality TV. When he finally slammed the wet key into my hand, I leaned in and whispered, "This is the last time you'll ever step foot on my property." And I meant every word. After Kyle and Mandy were evicted from my house, with police supervision, no less, I thought the saga might finally be over. I was wrong. In a just world, someone would crawl away in shame after being caught breaking and entering, trying to squat in their brother's house with fake paperwork. But not Kyle. Not Mandy. And definitely not my parents. They were just getting warmed up. It started that same night. I'd barely finished reinstalling a new deadbolt and pushing the last lock test into place when my phone blew up. Notifications. Missed calls. DMs. Comments. It was like I'd suddenly become a trending topic in the family drama section of Facebook. Because while I was focused on repairing what they'd broken, Kyle was already online rewriting history. The post was up for all of 30 minutes before it was taken down, but the damage was done. According to Kyle, I had offered him the house. I had changed my mind last minute, leaving his family homeless and humiliated. He played the victim, claimed I attacked Mandy, and painted himself as the poor father just trying to protect his kids. Mandy even posted a teary selfie with the caption, "When your own brother kicks your children out onto the street, pregnant and afraid, broken heart." And the worst part? Some people actually believed them. Flying monkeys crawled out of every dusty family corner. Distant cousins I hadn't seen since middle school. People I'd once worked with. Even my godmother, Aunt Loretta, left a voicemail so drenched in judgment I could practically feel the cross she clutched while recording it. "How could you? Your brother is struggling, Aaron. Struggling. What's a little sacrifice for family?" Sacrifice? I'd already sacrificed my dignity living out of a rusty camper while my family mocked me from a fully furnished house. But they wanted a war? Fine. I posted my own receipts. Screenshots. Videos. Voice recordings. One clip in particular went viral within the family circle, Mandy mid-slap, screaming that I couldn't do this to her, while Kyle stood in the background, casually watching like he was at a tennis match. Another gem was Kyle's smug confession. "You've got the camper. Just live in that." I uploaded it all, carefully edited and timestamped. And when people still tried to argue, I added this caption. "Funny how people always want to talk about sacrifice, as long as it's mine and never theirs." The silence after that? Delicious. I made my profile private and blocked over 30 people in one afternoon. If they weren't offering apologies or shutting the hell up, they were out. But of course, the core four didn't go quietly. Exactly 1 week after the eviction, I came home late from work and saw them again. No, they weren't in my driveway. This time, they were smarter. They were waiting across the street, parked in Kyle's van like a couple of dollar store mobsters. My mom was with them, too, sitting awkwardly in the back seat like a bad omen. I parked slowly, kept the engine running. My phone buzzed, text from Kyle. "Can we talk?" It's serious. Against every instinct in my body, I rolled the window down 2 inches and said, "You've got 2 minutes." Talk from the curb. Kyle stepped out alone, hands in the air like he was surrendering. "Look, I know things got heated," he started, voice low and falsely sincere. "But we just want to come to an agreement." Mandy peered from the van, watching like a hawk. "We're willing to pay rent, okay? Real rent. We can draft a proper lease. Maybe just a year. Until we find our own place. You can stay in the master. We'll take the kids in the guest rooms. You'd barely notice we're there." I laughed. Not a snarky chuckle. A full, deranged, head-thrown-back laugh that made him take a step back. "You think this is a negotiation?" I said, finally stepping out of the truck. "After you forged my name, broke into my house, lied online, and tried to turn my life into some twisted Lifetime special?" Paul tried to stammer something. Mandy opened the van door like she was ready to jump in, and my mom waved her hand in some weird peace-offering motion. And then he said it. The stupidest sentence to ever leave his mouth. "Well, if you weren't going to help family, you shouldn't have bragged about your house in the first place." My vision blurred red. My hand shook. And for the first time in my life, I didn't hold back. "You think I bragged?" I shouted. "I survived. I went from homeless to homeowner without 1 ounce of help from any of you. And now you want to take it? To act like I owe you? If anyone should be ashamed, it's you, Kyle. And you, Mom, for raising him to believe he's the son the rest of us revolve around." Mandy slammed the van door and yelled, "He's just bitter because he's alone." I grinned like a demon. "And you're about to be homeless." Again. They left after that. Slowly. But I knew the story wasn't finished. Because the very next morning, I got a call from my neighbor, Mrs. Halvorson, a retired detective. "There was a man poking around your backyard last night," she said calmly. "Tried the back gate. I scared him off with a flashlight. Looked a lot like your brother." I checked my cameras. Sure enough, blurry night footage of Kyle creeping toward my back fence at 2:47 a.m., gloves on. Hoodie up. The gloves didn't help. His dumbass was still wearing his work boots with the reflective stripe on the heel. I reported it. Didn't press charges yet, but I made it clear the next incident wouldn't get a warning. And still, somehow, this story was just getting started. There's a particular kind of silence after you've been violated twice, once by force and once by betrayal. The second kind? It doesn't scream. It doesn't rage. It builds. Quietly. Patiently. And then it burns everything to the ground. After catching Kyle on my backyard camera, trying to sneak around like some Dollar Tree bandit, I knew I had to escalate. There was no more benefit of the doubt. No more waiting for the adults in the room to appear, because I was the only one wearing the damn badge of reason. So, I called a lawyer. Her name was Dana Wu, and she came highly recommended by one of my warehouse buddies who'd used her to fight off an eviction by a shady landlord. "She makes lawyers cry," he said. Sold. Within 15 minutes of sitting in her office, Dana had already come up with a game plan, and her eyes sparkled in a way that made me wonder if she secretly enjoyed destroying entitled families. "You've got them," she said, tapping my phone. "Physical assault. Forged documents. Attempted illegal occupancy. Trespassing. Stalking. And now? Any attempt. Honestly, they're lucky we're not charging them yet." I told her I wasn't interested in revenge. I just wanted peace. Dana smiled. "Let me buy you some." We drafted a formal cease and desist letter first, complete with a clear warning that any future attempts at communication, verbal, physical, or digital, would be met with a restraining order and criminal charges. She had the sheriff's office deliver it to both my parents' home and Kyle's workplace. By noon, the family group chat was melting down. "Why are you doing this to us? I thought blood meant something to you. You're letting a lawyer tell you how to treat your own family?" And from Mandy, "If you think this is over, it's not. You can't just erase your brother. We'll be back." That was all the confirmation I needed. So I got creative. First, I bought a motion-activated floodlight camera and mounted it above the garage. Then I added a backup power battery in case someone tried to cut the main feed. I even picked up a cheap Bluetooth-enabled door sensor that would ping me any time my front door opened, whether I was home or not. But the crown jewel? A dummy security system control panel just inside the front door. It didn't connect to anything, but it beeped, flashed, glowed like a tiny war machine. They didn't know it was fake. And that was the point. It didn't take long for the bait to work. 3 days after the cease and desist letter, while I was at work, I got a ping on my phone. Front door. Open. Then, garage light. On. I logged into the camera stream, heart racing, and there they were. Kyle. Mandy. And no surprise, my mother, standing just outside with a tote bag in her arms crossed like a damn HOA Karen on Judgment Day. They hadn't broken anything this time. No lockpicking. No busted windows. No drills. This time, they'd gotten in through the camper. My own camper, the one parked in the backyard, still technically accessible via the side gate. And from there, they used the sliding door to access the kitchen. Crafty. I'll give them that. But also, dumb. They looked around like burglars in a bad sitcom, whispering, tiptoeing, Kyle holding his finger to his lips like anyone in the neighborhood gave a crap what they were doing. Mandy marched into the guest room and started stacking things neatly, her version of claiming territory, I guess. I called the cops. This time, I pressed charges. The squad car pulled into my driveway with lights off, quiet as death. I watched the footage in real time as Kyle opened the door and was met face-to-face with a badge and a flashlight beam. The panic on Mandy's face when she peeked from the guest room and saw her soft landing morph into a legal nightmare? Unforgettable. They were escorted out in handcuffs. Mandy screamed something about being pregnant again. She wasn't. My mom cried and clutched her purse like the Virgin Mary being led to exile, and Kyle just looked broken. Like the spoiled favorite who'd finally been told no for the first time in his life and had no idea how to process it. At the station, they were released a few hours later, pending investigation. But the damage? Oh, the damage was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to my voicemail inbox full. Apparently, the police report had triggered a domino effect. Kyle's job, a logistics coordinator at a private warehouse, caught wind of his charges. Turns out, they have a pretty strict no criminal behavior clause, especially for people who handle high-value cargo. And Mandy? She did have a part-time gig after all, at a daycare. Ironic, right? Daycare doesn't love hearing about felony trespassing, especially when it's tied to a domestic incident. Both of them were suspended pending review. My phone rang later that night. It was my father. He hadn't called me in over 4 years. Not for my birthday. Not for my job promotions. Not even when I was sleeping in a damn camper outside a Wendy's. But now? Oh, now he had time. Aaron, he started, his voice low and gravelly. You've made your point. But don't you think this is going too far? I could feel the smirk pulling at my lips before I even replied. I'm not the one who climbed through my own camper like a raccoon looking for dinner. There was a long pause. Then he said something that cemented everything. We're family. You'll always be our blood. And that's when it hit me. Blood was all I ever was to them. Not a son. Not a brother. Just an asset. A thing they could bleed dry and then guilt into more. I don't owe you anything, I said, cold as steel. Not anymore. Not ever. Then I hung up, blocked the number, and kept the voicemail for good measure. The fallout was swift. Kyle lost his job. Mandy's suspension turned permanent. And my mother? Oh, she tried one last Hail Mary, called our church pastor, and cried into the phone about how her cruel son was breaking the family apart. You know what the pastor did? He called me. Said he'd seen the footage. That my mom had left out a few crucial details. He didn't tell me to forgive. He just said, you did what you had to do. And for the first time in a long time, I slept without checking the camera feed every 10 minutes. The lock stayed locked. The phone stayed quiet. And the house? Finally felt like mine. Peace, it turns out, is louder than war. After everything, the break-ins, the lies, the forged documents, the betrayal, I expected to feel vindicated. Victorious. Triumphant. But what I felt most in those quiet weeks following their arrest was freedom. No late-night pounding on the door. No passive-aggressive voicemails. No Facebook smear campaigns. Just silence. And it was glorious. But like any monster movie that refuses to end after the third act, they had one last twist up their sleeves. It started with a knock, not at my front door, but at my work. That's right. These people weren't just out of line. They were out of their minds. It was a Thursday afternoon when my manager, Dale, pulled me aside. Hey, Aaron, there's a woman here asking for you. Says she's your sister-in-law. I froze. Mandy. I walked toward the front desk and saw her standing there, hair flat, makeup runny, holding a manila folder and the fakest smile this side of a reality show reunion episode. Can we talk? She asked. I didn't answer. I just walked into the break room and let the security guard handle it. But curiosity is a hell of a drug. Once she was escorted out, I opened the envelope she'd left behind. Inside, a handwritten letter and photocopies of baby ultrasound pictures. I almost laughed. Almost. The letter was the usual. We've made mistakes. Kyle's lost everything. I'm trying to hold us together. We're pregnant again. We have no future without help. and you're the only one with anything to spare. She even underlined the word family 5 times. And on the last page, in her loopy, overly practiced cursive, she wrote, "If you can't help us for Kyle, please do it for your niece or nephew. They deserve better." You know what I did? I photocopied the letter, added it to the legal file, took the original, lit it on fire in my kitchen sink, and turned on a podcast while it burned. But here's the real kicker. Not 2 days later, I got a call. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Aaron, this is Martin. I'm Kyle's boss. Well, former boss." Apparently, Kyle had listed me as a character reference years ago when he got hired. They'd found my number during a routine HR review after the incident. Martin was blunt. "We're not calling about him. We're calling about you." Wait, what? Turns out, Martin had seen the footage. Word of mouth spreads fast in our industry. When they heard Kyle had tried to illegally seize his own brother's house and then lied about it, they went digging. But what caught their eye wasn't Kyle, it was me. The work history, the hustle, the stability after adversity, the clean criminal record, the professionalism during absolute personal chaos. They offered me a regional operations position, higher pay, flexible hours, company car, the whole deal. I told them I'd think about it. Then I took it. Of course I took it. And suddenly, the house they tried to steal became the launchpad for something bigger, something they couldn't touch. But wait, there's one last piece to this twisted puzzle. A few weeks after the promotion, I was cleaning out the storage unit behind my new office when I found something odd wedged in the corner of a banker box, an old birthday card from years ago. Must have slipped in when I moved everything out of the camper. It was from my grandmother, a woman long gone, but still the only one in the family who ever truly saw me. Inside, written in her tiny, shaky pen, "Aaron, I hope one day you find something that's just yours. A place no one can take. You've always been stronger than the rest of them. Don't forget it." And I didn't. Epilogue. Kyle and Mandy. Still unemployed. Still living with my parents. Though my dad eventually kicked Kyle out of the basement after Mandy accidentally backed the van into the garage wall. They're on child number 5 now. Still posting about loyalty and real family. Still blocked. As for me, I gutted the house. New paint, new floors, solar panels. The camper? Still in the backyard, but now it's my weekend reading nook. I host game nights. I grill on Sundays. I sleep without fear. And best of all, I live in a house no one gave me. A house I earned. A house no one will ever take again. Because I stopped waiting for my family to be better. And I started choosing myself.